back live here in the studios. By the way, Mrs. Busby, I didn't quite make appropriate comment on your lovely hat this morning, your chapeau.
Yes.
What a delightful...
Isn't it?
Yes.
And I may treat you as we leave with a tune
salute?
instead of your traditional tune.
Well,
I may have to do that, Bill. You just stay tuned,
well,
and I'll let you know what's
It's half
happening.
your show. You might just as well think you're half and run with it. Yeah. On a serious note, Steve and Corey.
Thank you.
We talked about costs and so forth. We can't have a lovely facility and such an important facility to all of us. There's a cost involved. Significant funding. Tell us a little bit about your funding and your billing of patients and insurance reimbursements. I'm sure that must be a problem. And then, of course, the big factor is the state of Illinois. Could you like to address that just briefly, Steve? Well, you can. That's a lot to be brief. I'm sorry.
A little over 90% of our budgetary income comes from our user fees, which would include Medicare, Medicaid, insurance, and then private pay. We collect about 50 cents on the dollar, and that's the equation that's pretty consistent. So if our organization this 2011 budget is, I think, $1.7 million, and so we have to generate out of those 4,000 calls. We have to generate bills that look like $3 million. But when we finally get all the collections done, at the end of the day, we ended up with enough to balance the budget. The other, slightly less than 10%, comes from tax dollars. There has been an ambulance tax levy that has been in existence since early 70s, and so that monies, which is about between $120,000 and $150,000, it varies. But that monies then goes towards purchasing the ambulances. The ambulances all actually belong to the county. They're county owned. And then if there's any residual monies left over, then they will give us what they call a subsidy, and that can amount to anywhere from, we've had years where we didn't get any, and then sometimes when we get up to maybe $55,000 or $60,000 to help us out with that part. But that's where that money comes from and where it goes. So.
Well, people don't normally think in terms of specifics. Let's just say that you get called to my house, and I got transported to our hospital here, our excellent hospital. And then suddenly they decide that I needed to get down to Springfield and have to be transported down there. What are the cost factors involved there?
If you have good insurance, then and all the bills are paid, which in some cases they are, a typical emergency call would run somewhere between $650 and $850 roughly. Is what the charge is. And a typical transfer down to Springfield might be $800 to maybe $900, something along those lines. Sounds like a lot of money.
Yes.
But when you consider that most of our clientele are over 65 and they're on Medicare, Medicare pays X amount of dollars for that particular call, which is considerably less than what we charge for, and then they reduce that amount to whatever's they'll allow a residual amount to be charged to the patient, and it's usually anywhere from $60 to $80.
Do they charge you like they used to charge hospitals with so many percent of usual and customary? That's what they'll pay you?
I suppose so. I mean, I don't know how they come up with these equations, and frankly, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that.
Sure.
Well, there's no sense in it.
Pardon me?
There's not much sense in devoting your life to worrying
there's no
about
point in
it.
staying up at night about
Exactly.
it. Right.
It'd be what it'd be.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You have an illustrious history. It seems to me that when we first had an ambulance service like this that wasn't run by the funeral homes, it was the first in the state of Illinois, in a community this size, to establish one that was professionally done.
With paramedics. 1977 is when we moved from BLS, or basic life support, to ALS, or paramedics. 1977 was, as far as we know, it was one of the, if not the first advanced life support, rural advanced life support paramedic ambulances in the country. Prior to 77...
Oh, in the country, not in Illinois.
Prior to 77, you would find those types of things in L.A., all the big cities, Chicago, and all the big cities.
Right.
But you wouldn't find it in tractor country.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a... And we don't have the exact data, and so I don't want to say we were the first, but I'd say we were among the first, if not the first. We don't have any data to say that we were not the first.
See, Corey's too young to remember that way back in the old days, son. They used to pass. We had 3 funeral homes in the area, and they would pass it around. In other words, once a month this would be Holland and Barry, and the next time it'd be Kerrigan, and the next time would be, way back in the goals before Fricky's, it was the golf, and so that's what would happen. There was an emergency call, and this, okay, you call so and so this month, and then next month we call somebody else, and as good as they were, they were means of transportation. They weren't equipped like you're equipped today.
That's right.
It's really kind of... Tell us a little bit about your specific duties out there, Corey.
As a shift supervisor, I just oversee the day-to-day operations on my shift, and then we get together and have meetings with Steve and the other supervisors and make sure everything's running smoothly. It's a big part of it.
It's kind of like being a pilot, isn't it? You have to do these checks on the units right along before you can fly them out of your door.
They get checked every morning. The paramedics, they have each a rig that they check every morning, and they go through it and make sure everything's in it, backboards and whatnot.
Now, when they leave the garage, do you have a requirement that there has to be an EMT, and then the second person can be or there has to be a paramedic, and the second person could be an EMT or what have you?
Yes, we have to have a paramedic on board at all times.
At all times, at every run.
That's great.
But if you'll allow me to interrupt on that question,
You're the boss.
I think it's worthy to note that even though it is for an advanced life support paramedic ambulance to operate legally, you must have one paramedic. However, we've always had the attitude that when you have a bad call, one paramedic, one mind is not necessarily, in my opinion, is a wise decision. We have opted always to try, most of the time, I would say at least 90% of the time, we have 2 paramedics on board. And the reason for that is because, even though so many calls are fairly routine, when you have a bad patient, has lots of medical issues, lots of things to take care of and do, one paramedic is just not sufficient to give good, solid care. And so we try to have 2 medics on.
I think it might be appropriate to delve a little bit into traffic laws. Once you got the rig out on the road, what laws govern your transport, and what laws govern us?
Well, Corey's looking at me, so I guess I'll have to answer that one. We have to abide by all traffic laws, even when we're running an emergency call. So when you see the ambulance coming up to a intersection, we will slow down to the point where we can stop. We, slow down to the point where we look all directions to make sure that nobody is missing the fact that we're there, and then we can, move on if everybody's staying out of the way. We're asking for the right of way. We're not demanding the right of way. I think, as far as I know, the only ones that says we have the right of way is a police officer.
Well, it's their game and their rules.
Yeah.
Go ahead, dear.
No,
Go
you
ahead.
please. I've been taking too many turns.
I don't think so.
You can have one.
With that chapeau you're wearing, you're entitled to all the turns you got. Go right ahead.
Well, let's go back into the rules then. Now, when you come to a stop light, would that same practice hold true, that you could go through the red light if you had, like, virtually stopped and everybody was waiting for you?
Yes. We can go on through then.
Oh, yeah.
But again, you can't just blow a red light and then expect. The problem is that it's not even practical, because so many cars these days, if they got a really good, let's say a Cadillac, and it's well insulated, they got their windows up, they might have the air conditioner on, they might have the stereo on, they may not even hear the ambulance or see it until it's too late. And so that's the reason why we have to really watch these intersections, because there have been many people around the country that have gotten hit because of this
sure.
and died
Or even
because
killed,
of it.
yeah.
And so, we're real cognizant of that.
Now, am I not supposed to pull, though, to the side of the road if I hear you or see you in my side or rear view mirror?
It's a courtesy.
Oh, it's a courtesy.
You don't have to do it, but
But it's a safety factor,
It's
too,
a safety
Steve.
factor, and
You know.
the thing of it is most people, if they're aware of an emergency vehicle, they pull off the side because they realize that that this ambulance or this fire truck, they've got a job to do, and they don't have time to mess around. So most people will pull over for you. It's very rare for somebody to not pull over, and if they don't, it's usually because they just didn't know.
The old clock keeps moving around. We want to wish everybody, and Mrs. Busby has a special, for the benefit of those out there in the video land. We always try to close with a Viewpoint commentary about the subject of the day. This has nothing to do with the subject of the day. It has to do with New Year's and resolutions and so forth. And one swallow a summer doesn't make, but it sure plays heck with a New Year's resolution. We now bring on Mrs. Busby to sign off for the benefit of the camera. And Happy New Year to everybody out there, and Merry Christmas, more importantly, today. Well, her button has just started. Thank you. Merry Christmas, all.